Hello and welcome to Independence Jewelry. I'm Julia Bell, and today I'm going to show you how to wire wrap Seaglass into a pendant like this. Before we start, I wanted to thank all of you for supporting this channel. We just reached 1,000 subscribers, and that is incredible. So if you want to keep learning with us, hit that subscribe button. If you like these videos, let me know by giving me a thumbs up. Alright, well, let's get started. To start this project, you will need 22 gauge wire, 30 gauge wire, wire cutters, chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, masking tape or painter's tape, a ruler, scissors, a marker, and of course, your favorite piece of Seaglass. Cut a piece of tape large enough to wrap around the outside of your Beachglass. Cut a narrow strip if your tape is wide like mine. Now you want to wrap the tape around the outside of your piece and mark where your ends meet. Unwrap the tape and cut where you marked it. Stick this onto your ruler to use as a guide. This will be how long your wire wrapped bezel needs to be. Now grab your 22 gauge wire. This will be our base wire. We need at least 6 inches in length to make the bezel and the bail, and also to make detail in the finished piece. So cut 4 pieces and set aside. Take the roll of 30 gauge wire and spin it on your finger like a boss. You need about an arm span worth of wire, which is around 4 feet. Bend the 30 gauge wire in half by matching up the ends and then pulling it straight through to a loop. Now grab one of the pieces of 22 gauge wire and wrap the 30 gauge wire around it, starting in the middle. Now you can add the other 3 wires and begin to wire wrap them together. A good trick to keeping your wires straight is to bend them out. Does that make sense? This way you can clearly see the order of the wires you are wrapping. Start wrapping the 30 gauge wire around and in between the 22 gauge wires in this pattern. Wrap around 2 wires and wrap between those 2 wires. And then you want to keep going. Wrap 2 more wires and wrap between those wires. And again, wrap 2 more wires and wrap between those wires. This pattern continues on, alternating sides. You can rewind this part of the video as many times as you need to follow along with this pattern. As you get going, you can start to see the pattern coming out. Once this starts to happen, it gets much easier to wrap. Patience is key, so keep a close eye on this pattern. If you make a mistake, it's alright, just unwrap that section and try again. Remember, we are starting from the middle and going outwards, so it's important to check your progress and your centrality with your ruler and guide tape that we made earlier. So make sure you are checking that as you go. We are finally at the length we need. Look how beautiful this weave turned out. Now we must find the middle of the wrap using a ruler. Use the marker to mark the middle of the wrap. If you have a sharp pointed piece like mine, use your chain nose pliers to make a 90-degree bend at the mark in the middle. If your piece is round, you don't need to make this bend. Grab your piece of Seaglass and fit it into the bend you just made in the middle. Slowly start pressing the glass into the wrap and bend the wires around the outside of the piece. Now I'm going to gently bend the top wires apart on both sides. This is so I can see the directions of the wires. I'm going to press these wires into each other, alternating every wire on each side. What I'm trying to do is find the middle of the piece so I can bend these wires up to make a bail, which is where the pendant will attach to a necklace. Still grasping your piece of Seaglass into the frame, take the topmost wire on the front and continue the bend down over the front. This will help secure the piece into the frame. We will add detail to this piece later. Now do the same move on the back, using the topmost wire on that side to bend down and around the back. Flip to the front again and use your chain nose pliers to bend the remaining wires straight up. Make sure these bends line up to the center of the piece. Grab one of the wires on one end and gently bend it back down and wrap it around the remaining wires at least 2 times. This wrap is very important because it tightens and secures the whole frame around the piece of glass. You can trim this and tuck in the end with your chain nose pliers. Make sure that no ends are sticking out. Finally, you can let go of the frame now. The glass should rest into the frame easily. Let's start putting some functional detail into this. I'm going to trim that wire we bent earlier a little bit and make it into a spiral. I'm going to flip to the back now and do the same move again. Trim and spiral. Now it's time to trim the 30 gauge wires from the top. I'll start with one side. Trim and then tuck in the end. Make sure nothing is poking out. We are going to use that piece of 30 gauge wire we just cut off to wrap both of these spirals together. We're going to go through the frame to secure this piece of glass into the frame permanently. Thread the wire through and wrap tightly around the spiral wires. Take your time with this. Do one side and then do the other. You'll want to wrap this around the spirals a few times to make sure it's tight and anchored together. I only want 4 wires included in the bail, so I'm going to take this one wire on the side and bend it down to use for detail on the front. This creates a nice balanced wire flow. I'm going to cut a little off of this one and make another spiral to complement the bottom one. Okay, maybe I'll use another wire for more complementing spirals. This is really when you can do whatever you want. Look at the piece, follow the natural shape, get inspired. It's Beachglass. They're all different. Cut it and put another spiral in it. Okay, now we're going to make the bail. Take the remaining 3 wires and use the chain nose pliers to bend them up towards you at about 120 degrees. Then grab your round nose pliers and bend the bail wires over and back and then around the front. I'm going to cut and tuck this one end, but for the other 2 ends, I'm going to make more spirals on the back. Basically for more support for the glass and for something to anchor the spirals on the front with. The final thing I need to do is anchor all of these spirals like we did with the first ones. Take that other piece of 30 gauge wire you trimmed earlier and thread it into the back spirals through to the front. I'm going to use the rest of the length to wrap all of the loose wires on the front together. I want it to sort of match the way the bezel was wrapped. Once I'm satisfied with all of the detailing, I'll trim my final wire and make sure there are no loose ends. There we go! We did it! We made another thing! This and other things like this are available in the Etsy shop for those who wish to go check that out. All of the links are in the description below. Thanks for watching, everyone.